and welcome back to Dear Desk Diary. We're here for episode 2 and I am your host, Holly. So today we're talking about a very, very important topic, that is company culture and how it impacts your teams. So it affects everything: employee retention, it attracts talent, productivity, and it increases your revenue. It's something that is so important to talk about and potentially isn't focused on enough. I think some founders maybe think it's like fluff, is what I've heard before.
Yeah.
But it is actually an incredibly important part of your strategy, and particularly with revenue and profitability. So there is a study that by Glassdoor that says that you can actually reduce turnover by up to 30 to 50% compared to industry average if you invest in culture. It's incredible. And there's another one by Deloitte stating that there is actually a massive gap in how much we invest in culture. So with 88% of employees and 94% of executives believe culture is crucial, but only 12% think their companies are effectively cultivating it. So I'm very excited to introduce my guest today. We've got Janine Jacobs from Happy HQ. Janine is an advocate for people-first cultures. She's the co-founder of culture consultancy Happy HQ and co-host of the Culture Shock podcast. She's regularly featured in the likes of Career, Glamour, and Startups magazine. She's on a mission to guide workplaces in creating more fulfilling experiences for employees everywhere. With director-level communications experience, Janine has worked with global brands such as LinkedIn, Hilton, and PepsiCo. Her career has spanned various countries and cultures, involving both agency and client-side roles. Driven by a passion for understanding people, she studied at the School of Positive Psychology in 2017, where she now applies the science of human flourishing to the benefit of individuals and companies. Together with her co-founder, Louisa, Happy HQ provides companies and HR professionals with workshops, tools, frameworks, and hands-on support. Janine is also a Girls Network mentor, helping teenagers from disadvantaged backgrounds see their futures in more positive light and gain essential skills and build confidence. Welcome, Janine.
Thank you, Holly.
It's great
you actually make me sound really good.
You are really good. So tell me about Happy HQ. Where did it start? Why did you start it? Why is this topic so important to you?
I didn't really start out as a culture consultant. I started out working with brands in communications, marketing environments, did the big agencies, the smaller creative agencies. As you've said there, worked with lots of big brands, cool brands, small brands on lots of different campaigns. It took me to living in London. We're here in Shoreditch. Spent a lot of my 20s around this part of the world. Lived in Sydney for 5 years. Did a stint in Singapore for 4 years. And it got to the point where I'd had children, had two children. I got to leadership level, director level. And I started to really care more about the culture than the actual client work I was doing. Not that I didn't, I was a grafter and I loved the work that I was doing. But studying positive psychology at the same time, I started to really realise there's this passion towards like bringing a lot of what I learned into the work environment, into my team, lots of things that I just felt like, I've gone through 15 years of work and a lot of this I haven't come across before. There's a real need to create an agency like Happy HQ that can support companies with the know-how and the understanding and the tools and the frameworks to really be more people first. My co-founder also, Louisa, who is amazing. She's been running a B Corp positive impact recruitment company called I Love My Job for 13 years. She's been hearing why people are leaving their roles constantly and thinking, sometimes it's an easy fix. It could just be that they needed feedback, or, you could have tweaked a policy to make it, more fairer for everybody. So yeah, we got talking and collectively as friends, we came together with a shared mission, and Happy HQ launched it's coming up to 4 years ago in October. So
Amazing.
Yeah.
What are some of the main reasons why people leave? What does she find?
Things like, flexibility, wanting more flexibility, which obviously become huge topic since COVID. But, it could be, it's as simple as appreciation, like not feeling appreciated, not having a sense of purpose. Like so often, people are expected to work, just for the salary. You're here just to get your head down, crack on, get your job done. But actually, people want to know, and this is where vision is so important. Like leaders being able to to communicate that vision so that people feel really empowered and, you know, excited and engaged and energized by the vision. So it's like, I'm not just coming to work to earn a paycheck. Actually, the contribution I'm making is going towards something so much bigger than selling the product or service or making a profit, you know. And when we talk about things like purpose, you don't need to be saving dolphins, planting more trees. Obviously, do all those things. That's great. But it could just be, you know, we bring people together and make them happier because we're an event agency. So it's just about how you're, I guess, defining that as well and getting people along that. I hate the word journey, but it's true. It's like you're bringing people on that with you.
Yeah, it's interesting you say about purpose. I wonder how many people don't actually know almost what their company they work for do.
So many people. I think, you know, when we have purpose workshops, for instance, we're saying to founders, you know, why do you exist? And often, you know, there's more than one founder and they can't quite agree. And it's like, well, 10 years ago, why did you set up this company? Because it wasn't to make money. There was something there that made you set this company up. Now, what was it? It's about pinpointing that. And I think then you can sort of find people that will join you and be part of a culture that all, you know, carries that shared mission for sure.
Yeah, and it's not just about like their job role. They need to
No.
understand what the whole company actually stands for and what the next sort of 5 years will look like, I
Yeah.
suppose.
And even if you're an intern, you know, it's all around job meaning, isn't it? It's like, you know, you might be filing files. I don't know, like you might be doing something like a task, but if you know that this contributes to something so much more than the task itself, then yeah.
So you talk at Happy HQ about purpose, values, and people being the kind of the foundation of culture.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, I think, well, people first essentially just means knowing what people want and need from their place of work to do a good job. Like when we talk about culture, essentially it's everything we do. It's in every email we send. It's the way the reception person greets you at the door. It's the way you interact with the client. It's everything you do. And unfortunately, I think it's been such a like abstract, dynamic, complex thing. You referred to it before as that lots of people say it's fluff. Well, that really that's interesting to me that so many people call it fluffy when it's everything your employees are doing.
Yeah.
So if you think that's fluffy, I
Yeah.
think it's because like culture itself has had a bit of a bad reputation in the past where we've not defined and described it properly. We've described it by beers in the fridge, ping pong table, you know, social activities. That's great, but that's just really a small part of what culture is. That's perks and benefits, and that's also maybe linked to like how you connect as a team. That's not culture. That's doing culture a massive disservice. If your employees are going out there and saying, come and work at this place, we've got, you know, all these things, and that's how they're describing it, they're doing your company a huge disservice. You know, you want people to be describing it as, come here, you're going to have a great career, you're going to get lots of training, you're going to be contributing towards X, you're going to have these kind of goals, you're going to feel really appreciated. That's what culture is.
I wonder if founders think it sounds expensive.
I think
know what
that,
I mean?
yeah, but that's the thing as well. Like, culture isn't like this thing that we can like just shoehorn in operationally. And this is why we talk about values so much. If you really get your values right and you nail them and you live them daily, you're guided by them daily, you employ people that embody them, you reward people that embody them, you know, that's the way you do things around here because that's what matters to you. And I'm not talking about words like integrity and customer centric, by the way, that are like you should be you know, kill them.
Yeah.
You know, because they're just, you know, ethical, for instance. Don't set up a company or a business if you're not going to be ethical or customer focused or lead with integrity. But these values, they're what differentiate you. And so, you know, really, if they're fed into the operations, like if they're like people have values aligned goals, for instance, if people are rewarded, all those things, like operationally, that's how you're doing business.
And you make money.
Yes.
Revenue increases, profit increases.
Yeah, we hear a lot about employee advocacy and, you know, it all links back to, you know, creating this culture where there is this shared language of the way we do things around here.
Can you tell us about Happy HQ's values and how you kind of live by them and what you do to empower your team with them?
Yeah, so I always think with values, there should always be stories that back them up, right? Because that just shows that they're core and they're being lived by. So, yeah, our values are, well, health before wealth is one of them. And that, do you know what? That came from being a conscientious co-founder. Louisa, my co-founder, runs another business. So, you know, the Happy HQ, and I love my job because it's hiring, like they marry really well together. We're like partners, but basically I'd go, I'd be waiting for Lou, like to call me, say, I'm thinking I really wanted to go for a run and she's got stuck on a call and now I didn't go for a run. And then we had this chat. I was like, she's the first to admit, like 5 minutes to her means maybe 20 sometimes. And so health before wealth is like us saying, let's not burn out. Let's not put the company before things that really matter to us, like our health and well-being. And so, yeah, go for that run. And I'll just say to her, I waited, but health before wealth. So it's like it's almost like, instead of having to have those awkward, difficult conversations, sometimes it's just like health before wealth.
Yeah.
And it reminds us, it anchors us down sometimes when we're not, gosh, we used to laugh. End of last year, we were recording our own podcast series and we were both, working all hours around the clock. And we used to describe ourselves as cleaners with dirty houses because we needed rest. And so, yeah, health before wealth was born. Things like trusted to achieve. We're not on top of each other. You say you're going to get something done, just crack on and get it done. We've got strictly no jargon, so we try not to use acronyms or anything like that, just because it's like plain speak. We're not corporate, we're quite, down to earth people. So we want that to translate in how we interact with people as well. We're radically curious, so we learn constantly. We never know everything. I learn every day. And so we continue that through. And so if that means like paying for courses or, I don't know, like paying for courses or anything like that, training and development, then that's a thing that will always be. And the last one is being transparent constantly. So there's no secrets. Everything's led with transparency.
I love that.
Yeah.
And did you go through a whole exercise to get those values, or were they kind of born quite organically?
So for us, because there was 2 of us at the time of creating them, and this is why I always say do them as soon as you can.
Yeah.
Because for us, it was about we did a whole work around what both our strengths were and what made us feel energized. And, what they weren't like written overnight. You sit with them, you go with these, right? And also and we do a lot of this work with our clients as well. Once we've co-created values with teams, we're then going, right, how can this value live on? How can this be baked into how you run your business operationally? Like if you've got a value, let's say like communicate with courage, like Netflix, for instance, have that value. It's like, how do you give feedback with that value in mind? People aren't going to wait for their appraisal to like be shocked by feedback. They're going to, so it's like all of those elements, like how you interact as team members, little rituals, practices, like, what does onboarding look like if this is a value that we have in mind? What policies do we have in place that support these values? So it runs right throughout the company.
Oh, it's amazing. It's so important. And I'm sure there's so many companies that just have them written on a piece of paper or on a Google Doc, and it just sits on their drive and no one knows them or reads them.
Oh, absolutely.
Or some people put them on the wall.
Well, and the thing with the wall,
I don't know if I like that.
Well, the thing with the wall is, I think, again, this goes back to, corporate jargon on the wall, words like ethical and integrity, and what does that even mean? So what we say now is do the work. Like I almost treat it like as if I was coming up with a campaign, say, it's activating a campaign, and these are the words, but they need to live. Once you know that they're like living on, you've got things like values, rec awards, you've got people, people need to remember them and be guided by them daily. So absolutely whack them on the walls, but get them off the walls too. Get the, name. I've just been speaking to someone else and I was like, name offices after the office rooms after them.
Oh, I like that. That's a good
all of that
idea.
stuff. Like, that's all okay as long as you're living in them day to day as well.
Yeah, 100%. So have you got any recent success stories that you can share?
As in from our values or from...
Yeah, from where you've seen kind of a company implement some values well and it's had a good impact on them.
Yeah, I think just generally, like we work with lots of companies, big and small. I would say from a success point of view, the clients that you work with, where you are in a room with them, like we do a lot of pre workshop insights collection anyway, so before we even get to a workshop, we already know like what the consensus is. Like we ask for stories and backup, and obviously that we use the workshop to come together as a team to collectively decide and sort of hash out, get creative as well. But you can really tell with the clients that are like, I really want this to come from the people, because they're, you're not having leaders then go, right, these are our values, and everyone's like, oh great, like now how's it going to change things? The success stories, to be honest, won't feel any different from the day to day, because they're the core values. They're not like done for marketing gains or done to just, sound cool or culture wash or put a pretense on. Like if you're saying inclusion and diversity really matters to you, is everyone getting know your bias training? Like how are you hiring? Are you doing blind? Like make sure that all of, that value, you can really like stand up to it.
So fascinating. Well, you're doing an amazing thing.
Thank you.
So let's listen to the questions. So we have 4.
Hi, Janine. I have a question for you, and that is, if you could give business leaders one piece of advice on how to create a culture that is right for their people, and those people include them, what would that be?
Do you know what? One piece of advice is the hardest question. I'm going to say start listening. So often we talk about this a lot, right? You see CEOs or founders are like asking their LinkedIn community, has anyone got any good ideas for like team building activities? Like, have you asked your people? Like we seem so scared of like listening and getting actively listening as well, I should say, so that you're actually going to action and do something about the feedback that you receive. But yeah, I'd say listening, and then even though this isn't one thing, it sort of leads into being transparent as well, because it's all very good and well listening and you're getting the feedback, but what are you going to do with that? You can't like please everyone and do everything. So it's about being transparent with, we hear you, we've listened to you, these are the things we're working on now, here's a roadmap. Like people don't expect perfect cultures. They are quite okay with you being human as a leader and saying, or company saying, these are the things that we're doing great at, these are things we're going to work on. It's progress over perfection. Let them be part of the whole, I'm going to say that word again, aren't I, journey. Let them be part of it, and let them like co-create and come up with solutions with you. And I think that that would be my one piece of advice.
Feels like a good value would be, we are human.
But then you get the the question that comes back to us then is, well, how do I know what to ask? And that's where this is why we've got a culture audit, because we know all the right questions to ask, and we know that it always links to what people really need and want from their place of work. It links back to things like empowerment, appreciation, well-being, positive leadership. So it's making sure that you are asking the right questions too.
And what do you think is a good mechanism for asking those questions? Like, should it be a anonymous box? Should it be like an entire forum of sitting everyone together, like a town hall? Ask people individually in their one-to-ones. Like what do you see as
my question?
Or a combination?
A combination for sure, because there are some voices that talk the loudest and aren't, that's unfair. So it's, you want to make sure there's a sense of belonging. So, there's psychological safety there, so people feel like they can open up. This is why companies come to us, because like employees like that it's anonymous when they work with us, and that we're like, we can constructively give that feedback back to companies in a way that's like, this is what people are saying, but I would ignore that. We always do also this ENVP score now with clients, where we can figure out the percentage of people that are detractors, because you always have detractors in every company. You're always going to have the people that are quite negative, and maybe it just isn't the right culture for them. Or you've got your people that are really like invested in the culture and think it's a great place to work and would recommend it as a great place to work. So it's about looking at that feedback as well, and being able to ignore some of it and action the right things as well.
I
would definitely say a mixture.
Because I imagine like some employees might feel like, oh, I can't say how I feel because I could get in trouble.
Yeah.
And then from the leader's side, that if we ask them how they feel, we're opening up a can of worms.
Yeah.
Because what if someone says something and someone else agrees and then everyone quits?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that like a lot of, you know, we understand the pushback or where companies are quite hesitant to sort of ask feedback. They don't want to open up a can of worms, say. So it's about asking questions that you know that you want to action like already. You're just, you know, it could be something like, you want your benefits package to be like hyper personalized. You just want to stop wasting money on a one-stop shop package that people aren't even using that Bupa thing. So it's like, if you're going to open it up, just at least be able to action it as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. You need to make sure that you can actually do something about it.
And then it's about putting in, like, we call them culture foundations. So it's things like have regular one-to-ones with managers, forget exit interviews, have stay interviews, like make sure people are happy and that they, you know, if they were going to leave, what would that reason be? You know,
I like that. That's tell me more about that.
I think it's just like, it comes from again, like exit interviews is often when we've all left jobs, right? And we've all had exit interviews, and it's a really weird meeting because it's like, right, I'm now being honest with you.
Yeah.
I didn't have that chance to maybe be honest before. I didn't really know who to come to. Maybe it was even something like I just needed to leave work half an hour early to pick up my kid from nursery, and you know, I couldn't quite make that. Could you have made that work for me? Potentially, yeah, if you'd have known. And now I've just cost you absolute fortune to replace me and retrain someone to take this position. So stay interview is more about avoiding that and keeping the right people. Yeah.
Okay, next one.
Hi, Holly and Janine. It's Darren here from Zitcher. Just wondering if you had any good tips on how to create a culture for a remote working team, a small team, but we all work remotely. So any tips and ideas would be brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, so for remote teams, I mean, and there's so many now, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like, just to tell a story, you know, I've worked, like, I've known people that have started their first day and they're like, how did it go? Just loads of meetings, really boring. Didn't even get, like, you know, a little pen or paper or any, you know, like, literally. So I guess just onboarding is all about giving someone that warmest first day, that warmest first start. So I think right from the first day or even pre-boarding right through, it's about how can you have those intentional touch points. Like, I think with remote work, it can be very lonely sometimes. So, you know, as a team, are you actually meeting for face-to-face to have those anchor days, you know, even if it's every quarter for like team bonding. I am a massive fan of like getting together as a team, like physically.
Me too.
You know, I'm a pro flexible working and remote working for my own lifestyle and, you know, working in and around the kids. But I think just from, you know, where we need social connections, like, you know, and if you're not able to get together as much as you'd like in person, is there a local like community group that you can encourage employees to be part of? Like, you know, for instance, my mentoring with the Girls Network, that's a lovely way. Or I'm like a member of local community groups that all support each other. It's like, how can you help that person create that sense of community in and around the work they're doing as well? I think that's really important. Key. Yeah.
And I wonder, because I just from experience and talking to people, I think when people think about like company get-togethers, they often think about like going to the pub, and it's all quite like alcohol based, and I often think like, oh, I don't know how inclusive that is or helpful.
No,
because I don't know if teams get together and end up getting a bit drunk and start being like, well, and talking about each other. What are some activities or
do you know what I run culture cohorts for like small groups of businesses that we do like courses on culture, and lots of questions always come up about this, and it's like, but I ask the team what they want, and then we put this event on, and then no one wants to show up or no one really cares, and it's like it is really hard. I don't think there's like a magic solution. I do think you've got to keep asking people what they want, but I would say, you know, absolutely, like, celebrate as a company, celebrate accomplishments as much as you can, and use that as a reason for everyone to come together. You know, how many times are we not feeling like we ask one of the questions in our audits actually, when in the last 7 days has someone like acknowledged or like shown appreciation for the work you're doing. And I promise you, out of all the audits we've done, it's appreciation is always where people fall down.
Really?
Because we don't take the time to just go,
Thank
Holly,
you.
thank you, you're doing a great job. We don't do it enough. And so, you know, even for remote teams, just like sometimes I think I can imagine, you know, you're there thinking, am I even doing a good job? I need to be told and reminded constantly, like, and you know, little things like we do things with the team where it's weekly good news on a Friday. So we call it WGN. We branded it. It literally is on Teams, just us sending bullet points every Friday of like, these are the amazing things that have happened this week, and everyone sends like stupid memes and stuff. But you're leaving the weekend on a high. Like, it's something that I guess for remote teams as well, it works really well because you're going, oh, wow. And I understand now what that person's been doing this week. And sometimes we forget to communicate. So as long as there's that element of like communication, connection, team building and appreciation, like, you know, that I think that's the key.
The C's, communication,
Oh,
connection,
yeah, I just did all
community.
the C's. Yeah, yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Cool. Okay, so next one.
What's the number one top tip when onboarding new team members to get them to understand and be part of your company culture?
Yeah, we've covered some of this already. I would say,
That was more remote. I guess this is more general.
Yeah, this is more general. Well, we talked about values a lot, as always. I can never stop talking about values, but hopefully by now people are already aware of your values. So that first day, I think sometimes we often with onboarding confuse it with this big checklist of like, these are the things we've got to go through, all of these policies, like all of this information. For me, that first day needs to be, I guess, just reimagined as giving someone the warmest possible welcome you could ever give, to really get to know them. Forget getting them to know your company. They've already bought into your company. Let's get to know them. Like, just, you know, keep it very, very, you know, focused on who are you, what energizes you, like, so people can like be their authentic self. I think so often in those first 3 months we like hide ourselves away, and then all of a sudden we pass our probation and we're like, woo, you know, this is me. And that's when we do our best work, when we feel authentic. So, you know, there's a really lovely culture practice that companies are doing now. They call it things like the user manual, the personal profile, where, you know, like if you're going to buy a washing machine, it comes with instructions. But as individuals, we're often just, you know, we all have really different working styles. We're productive, like different communication styles, all those things. So you can put loads of different types of questions in that user manual and get people to like present it back to the team. Like, this is me, you know, this is the time of the day I feel energized. And I think that, you know, even again, like let's link that back to remote teams as well. That's a really nice way you can have that like captured on file or a Notion or something, so that when you're dealing with someone as well, you're like, oh, we have a shared interest in X, and it just like helps build those like bonds as well.
Yeah, it's so true. Do you know what? From like personal experience, just talking to like friends and whatever, whenever people start a new job, and then they'll, after a couple of months, I always speak to them, oh, how's your new job? And they're like, yeah, it's fine, you know, it's rubbish being new. And I know I always say to people, when in that first couple of months where they aren't enjoying it, and I don't know if it's the right move, I'm not really enjoying it, I don't really know anyone, no one knows me, I'm shy. I always say, like, give it 3 months. After 3 months, I feel like that's when you feel like you're integrated into the team and you're actually enjoying yourself. But like, that's crazy that it takes like 3 months for people to actually feel like they're part of a team.
Yeah, and that, I guess, that culture practice with like user manual and getting to know, that's people first. That's what we mean by being people first, because, you know, and that's not fluffy when you think, I want that person to like do the best job possible. So you give them the environment to, you know, if you're trying to grow a plant, you're like, you know, you water it, you do all the things to like let it harvest fruit. Like, come on, you know, it's not fluff at all.
No,
it's
and
like,
if you're losing 3 months of productivity because someone doesn't feel like they're part of a team for 3 whole months, that's a long. That's quite a long time.
Yeah, so I'd say, you know, that should be, you know, and you've got, you think about someone's first day, it really matters. You've got probably their like parents or boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, like all those people just going, how was it? And, you know, I remember starting at a creative agency, And I was so brought in by the clients, the brands, the work they do, everything. First hour that I was there, I got sat down and taught by the HR person how to fill in timesheets. And I just remember thinking, we're doing, and it's a PR agency, we're doing a really bad job here of PRing like the company to me right now. Like, you know, this could have been so much different. And there's loads of research actually that says that that first few days has a massive lasting impression on your output as well. Like I hate saying, you know, the case for culture is about productivity. It's so much more than that. You know, it's not like happy cows equal more milk. Like that's not what we're doing it for. But we're doing this as the right thing to do. But in saying that, there's loads of studies that show, like, you know, people in sales positions, for instance, if they really had that opportunity for people to really get to know them and they could be themselves, they like were miles ahead of, you know, in terms of output.
Really? Yeah, that's amazing. And I feel like whenever you join a new job, whenever you go home, like you say, you'd speak to husbands, wives, whatever, I feel like all people say is, oh, were people nice?
Yeah.
Like, it's always the thing, isn't it? No one says, like, what, you know, what's your computer like? Or, like, what's your workload like? People are like, oh, what are people like?
Yeah.
So it's so important, like, in those first few days that people get a good impression of the people.
Yeah. And, you know, if you are going to get to know someone as well, and if you do want people to get to know the company, then get the leader, the MD, the founder, the CEO, ideally, like take that person out for lunch, tell them what the vision is, get them excited, let them feel like they're, I'm going to say that word again, Holly.
Journey.
I need to replace that somewhere.
It's true though. It fits. It works.
Experience. There you go.
The experience. Amazing. Okay, last one.
How can you implement your brand's core values into your culture? Branding can often be associated with sales and marketing. How do we make sure our teams live by our brand values?
So brand values and core company values are different, but should definitely be synergy with them. So you could have a brand value like, let's think of something here like performance, but you're internally, you're going to call it performance to your customer, right? But internally, you're going to call that innovation, because if your people aren't like constantly innovating, you're not creating products that people are going to perform better with. So internally that looks very different. And I think when it comes to using your core values as like for marketing gains, like I always say, I think they should attract clients and partners, say, for sure, but don't try and do that without them living on internally. And obviously we've talked a lot about that, but if they're not like there every day in practices, rituals, systems, the way you do things, the way you onboard people, the way you give people feedback, all those things, then don't go and shout about them externally because you're going to annoy you're going to annoy the people that work there. So it's actually all a load of rubbish. And, you know, we call that culture washing, which can have an absolutely negative effect on how people feel, because it all just feels insincere.
Feels like the core value exercise is probably going to be taken on by the marketing person.
Yeah.
Like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we understand the need for it and the value of it,
yeah.
but it almost feels a bit inauthentic.
Yeah.
Or like it shouldn't be that person.
Well, this is why we have values workshops and we have values in action workshops. So after following once you've discovered and defined, you feel really happy, these values are great, they're sounding great, people feel energized by them, they're very us, they're unique to us, they make us stand out, all that stuff. Then we have values in action, because it's like, right, now we've got this value, how can it live on? And you get your employees to we have like loads of I love these workshops because they're really fun. They're like, you know, if you had all the money in the world and you're going to activate this value, what would you do with it? You know, like, so you know, what would an interview question be like based on this value? So you're looking at behavior, not skill, like, or you can get really creative, and, you know, people always have the best ideas.
Amazing. I just have one final question, and if you can't answer it, that's okay.
Yeah.
I know that we're recording, but I'm just going to tell you what it is. Yeah, just one final question, actually, from me. So we obviously do fit outs. We go into companies and change their entire environments in a few weeks, and I think it's a bit scary, or it can be. What would you recommend for companies that are either having a big refurb in their office or moving to a completely different location? how do they sort of keep culture alive? Because I think environment is actually really important for culture.
When you say how do you keep culture alive, do you mean?
I'm thinking more of like a sort of change management point of view, because I think we've noticed a lot of people, particularly if they're doing some kind of branding exercise, or I say branding, like a culture exercise, and looking at their internal values, it sometimes goes alongside moving.
Yeah.
Would you have any advice for people who are moving into a new office
Yes.
or a new environment to make sure that they don't get all in a tiz?
Yeah.
Because it can happen.
People
are in new worlds and they're like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. Joe, I've actually been through this. A company that I worked for in Singapore, we moved to a brand new office. We got a brand new fit out, worked with a really, like, I can't even remember the name of it now, but the company was like, great, well-known designer. We had input into, at different stages. So it felt like, oh my gosh, I'm going to say the word again. We were part of it, right? It was co-created. I remember on the day, we called it like launch day. We all got given passports. We had, on our desk, we had these little bits. So it was all like, there was, we did the whole like office launch party. It was really exciting time. And the office itself, all the even things like the names of the offices, we all got a chance to like name them together. And so, yeah, I guess just involving the employees at all different stages. And this is where like, I get excited because my background in communications is all about how you communicate it to the employees. And we were in a different location that, had its downsides because there wasn't as much food options and stuff like that. So it's like, well, how do you make sure that you're, that bit that people are missing, like the thing that maybe if you are in a different location, say, like, what do you put in place for that? Do you cater? Do you get a list of like takeaway menus that you put in the like, how do you make it so that people feel like actually this is the best thing?
When people are doing their moves, they think like, okay, we need a meeting room. How many times? And then I'll look at kind of how many times is that meeting room being used in a day. But I don't know how much people actually say to the employees, like, how does this feel for you moving? Like, what is it that you need? Like, what is going to change when we move to this new location? Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess it depends on like what's being impacted on their day to day. Like I've worked in agencies where we've moved and, now we're going to hot desk instead. And it's like, right, okay, this is going to feel really different because that photo frame that you had on your desk is no longer going to be there. And when you get in, you're not maybe going to be sitting by people that your mates. Yeah. So how do you like, what's the work around there? So again, it all comes back down to listening, doesn't it? And making sure that you're listening and like, making sure that everyone's being seen, valued and heard as well.
Amazing. Good. Well, we've done it. We've completed our questions.
There you go. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
It's been great.
It has been great. So you can connect with Janine on LinkedIn, and the links for Happy HQ and Janine's LinkedIn is in the show notes below. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Good.